John McDonnell, the nation's second favourite communist after old Jezza Corbyn, is literally insane. I know what you, my viewers, will be thinking. But Mitch, he is insane. Duh. And you would be right, my friends, but the thing is, his insanity is only getting worse and worse and worse. Now, before we get to the most recent bout of insanity, we must take a trip down memory lane and see how crazy Corbyn McDonnell ended up as insane as Uncle Joe Stalin. Now, his political career stretches back decades, but don't worry, we won't be going too far back. Let us go back to 2012, when crazy Corbyn McDonnell had this to say about how he wants Tory MPs to live in society.
Direct action campaigns next year on a synchronised basis. I want to be in a situation where no Tory MP, no coalition minister can travel anywhere in the country or show their face anywhere in public without being challenged by direct action. They need to be held to account for every action they're doing and the suffering they're causing working class people in this country. My view is they're social criminals. And eventually, I warned them, we will try you for what you've done. We will try you for what you've done to our community. We will hold you responsible for every harm, every hurt you've made against every individual in this country. Let me just say this final thing. The most important thing now is, I think, gear ourselves up, recognise the ferocity of the struggle that's to come.
So he wants them to be harassed, essentially. Make no bones about it, this is exactly what he is saying. Direct action, being called out, not being able to show their face without someone getting into theirs. And as we have seen over the years, especially this year, what that entails. McDonnell is totally fine with harassment, as long as it's his side doing it. But it doesn't just end there, guys. No, he continues to one-up himself. Like in 2014, when during a speech discussing events in Liverpool, he talked about people suggesting that the former Department of Work and Pensions Minister and Liverpool native Esther McVey ought not to be sacked from her job, but to be lynched. I was apparently okay with these comments.
I was up in Liverpool a fortnight ago where they've launched, Alec McFadden, one of our organisers, has launched the Sack Esther McVey Day. Yeah. On her birthday. And it was a packed, I spoke at a packed public meeting, it was absolutely packed, but there was a whole group in the audience that completely kicked off, quite critical of the whole concept, because they were arguing, why are we sacking her, why aren't we lynching the
It's all fun and games, it's just a joke. Never mind the fact that allegedly McVey was followed by strangers and was in danger after said comments made by McDonnell, which could easily be seen as inciting violence, and is not something that the Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer should be saying about a fellow MP. Yes, he's the Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer. He thinks he knows something about economics. Yet he's a Marxist. Regardless of party affiliation, they are technically still colleagues, and it shows complete disregard for any kind of etiquette and respect. And he completely doubled down on these comments, claiming he was just angry at what the government was doing to people, whilst using disabled people as a shield to defend himself from legitimate criticism of his actions, and that he can sometimes go too far, but in Parliament you have to be strong and use strong language, and it's better to be honest than not, right? What a stellar human being. Yes, there is banter in Parliament, yes, you need to be strong, but there are still rules. There are still things that you just do not say about people, regardless if you think that that is your honest opinion about them. There's some things that are just better left unsaid because it can get you in a world of trouble.
But wait! There's more!
Speaking about honesty, it turns out that the man can't actually be honest at all, if his complete U-turn on the EU is anything to go by. Also, McVey claimed he always keeps his head down whilst walking about Parliament, so not only can he not say this to her face in public, as a supposedly strong and honest man, standing up for disabled people, but he's actually a cowardly bully who can only incite others, like Momentum, to do his dirty work, and has no real principles. There's a reason he defends such comments. Because the man is, as we've said before, insane, he has literally bragged about being arrested for assault by the police, as if this is some kind of badge of honour. Labour supporters bang on and on about the Bullingdon Club and the Etonians in Parliament being a bunch of rabble-rousers back in the day, but their literal second biggest ideological mouthpiece after Corbyn is boasting, not about dumb lads on tour behaviour during their late teens and early 20s, but literal assault. We sent Paul Boateng, now Baron Boateng, down to get me out, and we got prosecuted for, I think, for GBH, grievous grievous bodily harm, jumping under a barrier, hitting on the back of an officer and thumping him to the ground. 3 different officers and a detective sergeant and the PC gave evidence to this effect, but thank God there was an American woman with a cine camera. It shows how long ago it was, and we all got off singing in the dock. That formed our politics in the struggle at the time. And apparently he managed to siphon off Londoners' taxes to fund the political action he was a part of, where he got arrested, which was at a famous protest at Greenham Common, a nuclear missile base. Also, family history. My own mother was there actually, and she didn't do any crimes while she was there. So I do find it very telling that he is this type of person to not boast about, I stuck up for my principles, being anti-nuclear power, anti-nuclear weapons. No, he boasted about being a violent thug, whereas my mum talks about the principle behind the actions. She was also much younger than he was. She was, I think, 15, maybe younger. He was in his, he must be in his 20s, 30s. Just shows what kind of human being he is. So, as we can gather, he's basically a hypocrite. As the left love to go on about taxes and paying one's fair share, making sure the rich don't try to jump through loopholes to avoid paying taxes. Here, we have someone actually stealing other people's money to fund far-left political activism and his own violent behaviour. Also, in 2010, he was quoted in a speech saying that if he could, he would time travel back to the 1980s and assassinate Margaret Thatcher. But don't worry, it's just a joke. It's not like he can never ever be friends with Tories and can never ever forgive them for the policies they put in place, which cut benefits and pensions to millions of people, whether they be old, disabled or unemployed. Never mind the fact that his ideology currently has made Venezuela, once one of the fastest growing economies in the world nearly 20 years ago, into a third world mess where people can barely even afford to keep the lights on and feed themselves. But it's okay, because that's probably not going to be real socialism when he admits it went wrong over there, if he ever does. And also, last I checked, the government that actually got them into this mess, which created one of the most destructive Tory governments at the time, was your own government meddling with the banks and doing stupid things with the economy. But what do I know, right? It's okay, that's all in the memory hole now, guys. It's a completely different Labour Party. It's not like he was part of that at all. Moreover, the man is a legitimate supporter of terrorism, much like Jeremy Corbyn, as a well-known supporter of the IRA, and has wanted them to be acknowledged and celebrated for their armed struggle. I suppose all those non-violent nationalists and Catholics should just be ignored because the IRA, a literal terrorist mafia organisation, is more becoming of that. By the way, he has yet to say we should also equally commemorate the Protestant militias like the UDA. It really begins to put these comments about harassment, direct action and lynching, just a joke, guys, supporting literal terrorists and assaulting police officers while siphoning taxes and getting your contacts in politics to get you off scot-free into perspective. But fast forward to this week, and he's in the news again. Recently, he made comments that have been, in my opinion, specifically engineered to divide the country. So much for the many, not for the few, and trying to be the party of tolerance and unity. At a speech during the Edinburgh Fringe, McDonnell, throwing Scottish Labour under the bus effectively, said that he would not stop another independence vote for Scotland. And there have even been hints from both Labour and the SNP of some kind of alliance. Not just that, but he referred to Westminster as the English Parliament. Firstly, it's the British Parliament where the rest of the Union is actually overrepresented. English people are actually underrepresented. But England doesn't even have a parliament, or much devolved powers. We were promised some regional devolved powers, but where are they exactly? And never mind the fact that the Scottish, the Welsh and the Irish can still get to vote on policies that affect us in England. Regardless, these comments were a prelude to the main event, as McDonnell decided in one breath to do this. Criticise Boris Johnson for being reckless when it comes to no-deal Brexit, and saying that this will be fought by Labour, but also saying that he would march on Buckingham Palace if he has to convince the Queen to stop the government. How exactly can he accuse Boris of being reckless and perhaps a bit crazy if he himself has a history of nothing but insane drivel? How can advocating for what is basically a coup and causing a constitutional crisis sane? But this isn't the first time he's said such things. A few years ago, he and Jeremy Corbyn were openly advocating for insurrection in the streets, especially after a few volatile years of sporadic rioting, mainly by students. Thankfully, we can be rest assured he has no power to actually change any laws, nor does he have the firepower nor the ability to actually try and march on the Queen. The Coldstream Guards are there for a reason. John McDonnell not only wants to break up our country, he even wants to make sure that any person, particularly Tories, should be silenced. If you want evidence, see the previous clip here.
My view is they're social criminals. And eventually, I warned them, we will try you for what you've done. We will try you for what you've done to our community. We will hold you responsible for every harm, every hurt you've made against every individual in this country. Let me just say this final thing. The most important thing now is, I think, gear ourselves up, recognise the ferocity of the struggle that's to come.
Where he vows he will fight these social criminals and try them. So in a metaphorical sense, what is that? I think you all know the answer, because we all know that a social criminal does not just mean a Tory, it can mean literally anyone who disagrees with Commie, McDonnell and his ideology, represented by the new Labour Party. Coming from a literal self-avowed criminal is pretty cheap. Why does he support terrorists, like Corbyn does, and has started a civil war within his own party over independence in Scotland? Because ultimately splitting up the United Kingdom will aid in his aim of overthrowing the capitalist imperialist system in the world.
Now, you used to put in your Who's Who entry that your hobby was fomenting the overthrow of capitalism.
And everyone thinks I misspelt that. It wasn't. It was a joke on brewing, but never mind.
Is it now your job, the overthrow of capitalism, rather than your hobby?
Yes, it is. It's transforming our economy. Because I think we've got at the moment...
There's a difference between transforming the economy and overthrowing capitalism.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is, because I think at the end of the day I want a socialist society, and that means transforming in a way which radically challenges the system as it now is, and I think that's what we're doing. And what's interesting, we're taking people with us, because people see that there has to be that transformation. We cannot allow another crisis to occur that occurred in 2007, 2000, where we all have to pay for that. We can't allow... Well, I can get quite emotional about this. Look, only a few months ago we had someone die, a homeless person die within feet of a door of Parliament. I don't want to live in a society like that, and I don't think the British people do either.
We are the little Satan to the big Satan, the United States, in his worldview, and scalping his own country is but just the first step on the road to a socialist utopia. It's probably now why he has U-turned on the EU, because actually, if you think about it, the EU as a framework can totally be used as a socialist country like the USSR or China, where the people have no say in who governs them, and all decisions and leaders are voted for by a select elite. Isn't it just advantageous? I think I could go on about McDonnell endlessly, but I would just end up repeating myself at this point. The man is legitimately insane. I'm not joking. This is not hyperbole. When a few jokes, a few statements become a pattern, how can we be sure the man is just pulling our leg and is actually unhinged, and if in charge, would do serious harm to others he has deep, seething hatred for? It really is becoming a truism in that those who call others crazy tend to be crazier, and those who preach tolerance are actually amongst the most intolerant, and those who preach equality are actually the worst at treating people equally. All this applies to McDonnell, but the more he says this, the less chance Labour has of being elected, thank God. Anyway, this is the end of the video. Don't forget to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to my channel and click the bell so you will be notified. See you later.